Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the High Ticket Coaching and Consultant Strategy and Growth Show. Now, if you're watching this interview anywhere else but within our private Facebook community, High Ticket Client Attraction Insider Circle, then definitely come check us out. We definitely love to have you. And that group was put together specifically for coaches, consultants, and service providers who are serious about getting up to that 6 and that 7-figure level. So if that's you, definitely come check us out. So today, I want to introduce you to one of the members of our community, Mira. Welcome, Mira.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. You're welcome. And also what I try to do as well, as I explained a little bit earlier, was trying to introduce individuals who do run successful businesses and just bring them into the audience. Because I know there's a lot of individuals who they might just be getting started or considering getting started with their business, and they really haven't fully committed yet. So I'm introducing them to different individuals who have already created success and just kind of learn directly from them, right?
Yeah, no, that's great. I love that you're doing that.
Awesome. So tell me, Mira, what is it that you do?
I work in brand development and creative strategy. So a lot of my roles they come to fruition as my clients' needs become evident. A lot of it, I work with a lot of musicians, so I do a lot of tour managing and booking, but as a general consulting business, I do brand development. So I have clients come to me with various different goals in mind, and I set up a blueprint of how we're gonna reach each milestone, and we consult or figure out a scope of work based off their goals.
Yeah, brand development. So how did you get started in that field?
Kind of on accident, to be honest. I was just very much so around the creative world. I'm based in Seattle. There's a great music community here. And I really found myself attracted to the PR world and telling stories, finding out what each client's brand story is, what the vibe that they're bringing to the table is, and learning how to identify that and helping them tell the masses. So I was just working on projects randomly with friends and people that were trying to make things happen. And then it just got to a point where I realized that was actually a skill set that I saw it as something fun. I didn't realize it could be a career.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So what's your backstory? How did you get started? What did you do before you were doing this type of work?
So I have always been in the creative world as far as I ran an open mic in my early 20s, and now so that was a little bit ago. And now I worked in corporate for a little bit, and I worked as a buyer liaison with the designers that made the Nordstrom brands, which was still very creative, and I loved being around that atmosphere. But I found that corporate lifestyle just wasn't necessarily the fit for myself. And so I started to work freelance, and I had a few clients that I was working with, but nothing that I could just quit my job and make that transition quickly on. So I just started to I juggled a little bit, and I did both. And then eventually at one point I realized, it was time to give all of my time to brand development and see where I could take that. So in 2017, I left my corporate job and launched my company.
Mm-hmm. So with your company, when you launched it, were you already profitable, or were you still on your way figuring it out?
I wasn't. I would like to say that I was. I totally wasn't. I was at a point where I had made enough to form the LLC, but I wasn't. I was not in a predictably, profiting place. I knew a little. I would have a job that paid a substantial amount, but I wouldn't know when the next job was going to come in, and that was a really hard transition to make. Was learning how to take risks that you don't necessarily. You feel like you're shooting shots in the dark, but also you have to be calculated at every step at the same time.
Yeah. And I believe that's so powerful as well too. I know for myself, my own journey, because I spent 8 years as a U.S. Marine, and I injured my knee, and I had to figure out, okay, what do I do now? And a lot of people, I realize, they take the approach of saying, well, I'm going to make some money. I'm going to build something to where I have the income coming in, and then I'll quit. And for me, my situation was so sudden that I realized, what do I do now? Like I don't have any college degrees, nothing. Like, what do I do? And that's when
Right.
I made the leap. I just decided, it was a bit scary, but I just said, I just do it anyways and just got started, which is, yeah. And sometimes I believe that's the best way to do things, right?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think, growth and comfort don't live together.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you're completely, if you're not terrified, the risk isn't big enough. Something needs to, and also I'm someone that works really well with a fire under me that is kind of like, you don't have room to not succeed at this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that, mixing it with having that balanced planning and execution, but with also just being willing to take that risk is a huge part of it.
Yeah, yeah. So as you've been on your journey, especially in the beginning phase, did you run into any type of obstacles, any type of, or was it pretty much smooth sailing for you?
Oh my God, I wish I could just be like, it's the smoothest. No, I mean, of course, there's been hiccups along the road. I mean, I think also none of them that I would take back. I think a lot of the hiccups I've met have just been trial and error and learning what works for my clients. Because brand development leaves so much room for different goals, I'm constantly working on new terrain that I might not have experienced before. And
Mhm.
I think that, um, some hiccups are, you look at them and you're like, oh, why didn't I see that coming? And then others, I just more see it as an opportunity of what I know not to do anymore. And those are hiccups that I will take with a grain of salt, because I find that I'm learning way more from them than had they not happened to teach me.
Yeah, yeah, so powerful because in business, it's one of those places where, as you go, because entrepreneurship is the biggest thing about it is it's doing something you haven't done before, right?
Yes.
So I know for myself, one of the things I try to do is like plan out my entire success. I was like, okay, this is how it's gonna be, and this is how it's gonna be, and this is how it's gonna be, and
Right.
then trying to go and making that happen and realize that it's just not adding up, right?
Right. No, completely. And I think, and to add on to that, I very much so work that way. And so my brain always wants to have everything laid out before I
Mhm.
launch. And one thing I've really learned in this process is that at some point you just have to put it out there. I worked on my website for a year before I published it. And that was not necessary, because the amount of changes I've already made on my website since publishing it, because I put it out there, got clients from it, and learned more of how I wanted to portray my brand. It's almost like you can't be a perfectionist, because you'll always be waiting to launch something. So it is very much like what you're saying of, you know, you don't want to be reckless, but you also just need to put stuff out there and go with it.
Yeah, love it. So in terms of clients wise, what type of clients do you typically work with?
A lot of them are musicians. A lot of them are creatives, whether it's writers or artists or photographers, models. But I do work with some startups in the tech world. So I've worked with a few nonprofits who are looking to get off the ground. I've also worked with some corporations just doing their ad campaigns. So one thing I think that has made me really happy with this setup is it's so many different worlds and so many different forms of creative strategy. And so I really love getting to experience multiple different demographics. I think that's one thing all entrepreneurs share is our love for finding something new and figuring it out.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. My biggest the place where I love finding new things as well too is new people. Right. My thing is just people because I find that every time I want to get to the next level, whatever, I typically try to figure stuff out on my own. But then once you connect with that right person, all of a sudden the thing that's difficult or whatever, just add them to your circle. All of a sudden
Right.
things just become so easy because maybe they might have that skill. They might be
Totally.
able to make an introduction to something, right?
Totally. I mean, yeah, I think networking is, I mean, obviously it's a huge part of it. And also learning when, as an entrepreneur getting something off the ground, you're wearing a lot of hats. So it's really nice when you meet people that their niche is in an area that you might not be able to execute it like they can.
hmm Yeah, awesome. So what in essence, as far as the vision that you have for your company, what's that vision?
Hmm. It's funny you say vision, because the tagline is bringing voice to people's vision. So, my vision is, I guess, building a experience and roster of success stories that have wanted to leverage their brand further. I think the joy I get out of brand development is it very much so feels like being a storyteller, finding an experience, using your intuition to kind of pick up off of elements of that brand and find the key components of it that the masses will pick up on and appreciate. So yeah, I think that, I guess my vision is just to continue to grow that and be in a place where I have the resources and tools to elevate the people that I work with.
hmm And what about so I guess brand development? What are a few mistakes you see made by most individuals with the brand?
Hmm. Um, Lack of focus. I think a lot of people have an idea of what they want their brand to be, and they could very well easily maybe like go on Pinterest and find elements for a vision board of their brand. Like they know what they want to feel like, but they might not necessarily know how to execute it and how to tell that story to their demographics. So I've seen a lot of less of a blueprint of how to strategize all the content that clients are sitting on, and maybe not seeing the power in specific content that they're sitting on. I think a lot of people don't realize what they already have that could really move them forward. I think a lot of people think that they need to be bigger or better or further ahead to kind of make a mark. And so that's a big mistake I've seen, is just people not realizing their capabilities and just putting some focus on how to roll it out. You know, not everything is all at once. If people had put out the iPhone 10 before 1 through 9, that's a lot of missed sales. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And what about some elements of a brand? What elements would you say make up a brand?
Well, I mean, that's circumstantial depending on, the area of what that brand is, but content, stories, experience. If we're talking musicians, a very powerful thing for them is to have visual footage of the work that they're doing, to really show their followers what they're bringing to the table and what it's like to be around them. We live in a day and age where everyone is so impatient. We don't want to click more than 2 times, sign up for someone's email. We don't want, if that video is not loading, I'm going to keep scrolling. So I think that, I don't know. I think that we live in a time that's very fast paced, and it's important to feed them content that keeps them knowing how to tell your story. The best PR is word of mouth. And it's important for a brand to use its content to tell the elevator pitch to their demographics so that the people can go around and tell more people about that. But as a brand, you need to tell people how to talk about you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so fascinating. I remember Steve Jobs, when he said it's like the whole marketing type of stuff, it's really about sharing your values, right? So most individuals, when they do approach social media, they just go out trying to sell, versus
Right.
a better way is to figure out what your values are beforehand. And when you show it to the marketplace, share those, lead with those, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, love it. So in essence, what's next for you? What do you see as far as in the horizon for you right now with your company?
Yeah. So obviously everything's kind of repivoted with quarantine and where we're all at. So this next year was geared up for a lot of festivals, a lot of touring and booking. So that's all on hold. So I've kind of repivoted. I'm this next year really building to add more corporate clients. So I've brought on a few clients that are looking to form their brands and come up with ad campaigns. So I'm going to be working with more corporations on that, which will be nice. It'll be a new network of people, outside of the creative world. And just using this time, honestly, there's so many, I'm sure any entrepreneur can relate. There's tons of ideas that I constantly have of a business I would love to start or a product I would love to create. And, that takes a lot of focus, and I'm juggling a lot of balls. I want to land one first before throwing another one up into the mix. But one thing that quarantine has been really great for is it's given me that time to focus a little bit more on things that I thought I would do after achieving something else. So I'm kind of forming what this next year looks like. And I've added a few more new projects to the table, going to be starting another side project of creating a space for the creative world. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I think right now I'm kind of in the mix with everyone, just repivoting after quarantine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with your business, were you mostly offline before COVID, or were you bulk online?
Both. So I work with clients in Europe as well as in the States. So I've always done a lot of, remote is not a new way of working for me. But because a lot of events were a part of my job, right? And right now we can't throw those events. So networking and brand exposure that was happening via events, that's all shifted to the online world now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so most of it's online.
Yeah, right now, definitely. And when we can fill a space and all have a crowd chanting, be back to the physical spaces.
Yeah. And with your clients, you said you have clients in Europe. Are your clients typically all global, all over the world?
Yes. Yeah. So I have a client that's in the UK. I work with some people in Italy, and then one client in Asia.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Love it. Love it. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. That's what I love, because with our business, we help individuals basically package up their knowledge into high ticket programs and market it online.
Oh,
And most
great.
individuals, yeah, when they first come to us, they were like focused on their little city or town and try to
Right.
get clients there. But once you get to the online world and you're seeing the clients from, as you said, Italy, Spain, Jamaica, all these different places, like, oh,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, it makes the world
Yeah.
seem like such a smaller place, right?
Oh, completely. I mean, I think that's also, especially in the music world, because there's so much appreciation for music that's not from where you are. So a lot of the clients that I have, they'll be, in Europe, they really are fueled off of the crowds that are in the US. And then US clients I have really have followings from the UK, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really nice to see how adding more places is also works as leverage for the others.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And your service, so the type of service you offer, is it like a done for you type of process where when you get your clients, you're actually physically doing work for them, or is it more like a coach and consultant type of work?
Both. So I offer two approaches. I'll do one consulting session to kind of like to assess and do a brand audit of where they're really at and how I feel I can most help them. I have some clients who are very hands-on and they're more so looking for a consultant to help guide them. So I have clients where we do a weekly check-in and I help them build the blueprint, and I help them, I might do a little hands-on work where I'm putting the strategy that comes from our sessions down. But a lot of work will also be, we'll do the consulting session and then they'll say, well, I want you to also do it. Everything you said sounds great. Can you just go ahead and make that happen? So I am not strictly consulting. I will be hands-on and form a scope of work for the clients based off of what it would look like to have me execute that.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And a question I love to ask as well too for any entrepreneurs, like as you go through, right? I know for myself, I'm always getting these big insights every couple of days or something.
Right.
So have you got any big insights in terms of ideas? You're like, man, this is a really good idea. By sharing with someone, they could really get some awesome value out of it.
Yeah.
Have you had any of those over the past few days or weeks?
So good that I can't say what they are.
Oh, goodness.
No, but no, totally. I mean, I think I really enjoy getting to hear different ideas that people have in different realms of the creative industry. But definitely, I've had some clients that have come to me and I have that feeling where I'm like, oh, this is really a kernel. Like this could pop into something more and really develop into a bigger idea. So it's really inspiring to get to hear other people's ideas and thoughts and try to help them in any way I can.
Love it, love it. What about information? What books are you a reader? Are you listen to podcasts? How do you get your new information?
So right now, anyone in the music industry will probably know this book. I'm currently like knees deep in All You Need to Know About the Music Industry. It's by Donald Passman. It's the industry Bible. So it is pretty much just, it holds all the information that you need to work in the music world as a manager or PR or lawyer. So I'm halfway through, I'm about 400 pages in.
Oh goodness, you said 400 pages. How big is this book?
It's a big book. It's one of those books that you read it strictly because if you carried it around with you that day, you're going to make sure it was for a reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of podcasts. I really love this podcast called The Story, which is, I've heard it on Spotify, but it is a story. They take a bunch of women who have done remarkable things in the past or invented something or are women entrepreneurs, and they tell the story of their brand or their story, but without telling you who it is till the very end.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll hear this like great, and then you'll be like, oh my God, that was this person, or, and so it's a really, for me, it's less like, there's tons of podcasts I listen for actual information of how to move my brain, move my clients forward. But this is more, it sparks inspiration. And I feel like any entrepreneur would connect with it because it really just shows, I think what makes success as an entrepreneur feel so good is how hard it was before, you got that big break. And this story speaks to that all the time. It's that before they knew they had $1 billion idea, what was going on in their world. And I find that really inspiring because I would like to think I'm at the point right before I find out, you know what I mean? And so it's really inspiring to hear kind of what their experiences were. And it just adds a little bit more fuel to the fire when you're constantly trying to make your brand work.
Mm-hmm. Love it. So tell us, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to connect?
Email is always great. It's Mira@mirakraft.com. And then my website, there's a submission form on there. It's mirakraft.com. And there is an About You section where people can click and tell me what their vision is. And if they're looking to book a consultation session, or if they're looking for booking, or, you know, whatever it is that they need, there's a place to let me know and set up a session to connect from there.
And who's that ideal person you'd like to reach out and
Sorry?
who's that ideal person you'd like to reach out and
Someone who is already completely sold on their idea, is open to learn how to make it happen, but someone who, even though they're about to go through a very scary process of believing in themselves before other people do, someone who already knows and has full faith in what they're bringing to the table, I think is an ideal person to work with. And not to say that someone, you know, I only want to work with people who are very confident in their work. I think we all go through moments where we're like, what the hell am I doing? But just people who are confident in themselves and realize that we all have, at some point in our lifetime, we've all thought of a $1 billion idea.
Love it, love it. Awesome, Mira. Well, hey, thank you so much for making the time to be here today. And guys, all the links Mira just shared here, to connect with her, they'll be either above or below this video. So you should be able to click on there and get connected right to her. Well, hey, thanks again. Do you have any final thoughts before we end?
No, just thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. This community is really great. I'm honored to join.
Awesome, love it. And we'll talk soon, okay?
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Awesome.